Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to New Worlds November. This is a new BookTube event that was cooked up by Scott and Becky at the Bookish Bryants. I'm one of the co-hosts. We have a great roster of co-hosts, and it's designed to celebrate science fiction. It's really tempting to imagine New Worlds November just going on and becoming one of those old and venerable BookTube events, much like Nonfiction November, which is also going on this month, where we celebrate science fiction in all of its infinitude. and to pare down that infinitude, we decided to concentrate on short stories for this first iteration of New Worlds November. And we also decided to narrow it down even further with prompts. If you want, you can do prompts. So we did aliens, and then we did robots and AI, and this week we're doing time travel, which you might think is a staple of science fiction, but I have noticed I have decided to narrow my own inquiry down even further by looking at the square-bound pulp periodicals that publish science fiction short stories. So I have not gone to anthologies. I have a million science fiction anthologies, but I have not gone to them. Instead, I've gone to the living wood, to the actual market for these things, in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, Analog, and Asimov's. And when I was looking through those issues for 2021, I was going to restrict myself just to 2021, but I have not been able to find much that's really good, that's more than flash fiction, that has time travel as its center, at least as we stereotypically understand time travel. So I've gone a little further afield. I've gone a little bit backwards in time, ironically enough, thanks to a cache of old pulp periodicals that one of you actually was kind enough to send me. These were great fun to read anyway. I reread most of them as soon as I unpacked them from the mail, but going through them for themes has been interesting. And I went today to 1978. This is Analog. From 1978, this is 1978, keep in mind. That's the time frame we're dealing with. There is a huge ring space habitat, which doesn't look like anything that humankind has ever built. But look what's approaching it. What's approaching it does look like something that humankind has built. This was, obviously it's not Earth that it's orbiting, and this was once a dream. And along these timetables, the people in 1978, I've heard, easily imagine that if you gave them an outlandish date like 2021, this would already be true. Didn't turn out that way. But I went through this magazine. This was in 1978. Ben Bova was actually still editing Analog magazine, and I went through this one for time travel stories. I only found one. Even in 1978, I only found one way back in the back of the issue. It's called The Gift of Prometheus, and it's by Kevin O'Donnell, an author that in 1978 I think was only writing short stories, or maybe he'd written a novel, but I didn't know about him. I wasn't paying attention to his name in periodicals in 1978. Instead, it was years later that he wrote the first book in the Journeys of McGill Fan, a science fiction novel in a series that I think got only up to 4. I don't think he's ever continued the Journeys of McGill Fan. I almost want to wonder now if he's still alive. He must be. I met him at a convention. He was just a boy. He must be. Anyway, the Journeys of McGill Fan is terrific science fiction, just terrific. But what would happen if you had a group of people who had the ability to teleport just so much weight, just so much distance, under just the right conditions? Of course, they would form a guild. Of course, they would be highly paid specialists. Of course, there would be an industry built around them. And what would happen if one of them was brushed up against being the stereotypical science fiction concept of the chosen one? The Journeys of McGill Fan are just wonderful. They're funny and intricate and dense and smart. And I've read other things by this author and felt they were much the same. This this short story, The Gift of Prometheus, feels a little bit like an early work. And it involves time travel in a way. In a way. It involves, the premise is a stage magician, who we quickly learn is he's performing for the President of the United States, who's referred to in this story as Porky, and who has a Praetorian guard of hyper-vigilant Secret Service agents. and who isn't exactly a lawful figure. He is a grotesque, self-absorbed, babyish monster of a figure. At one point, we're told that the motto of the Secret Service people was, "Gotta keep Porky safe." The man's got enemies, lots of them, who don't understand why it was necessary for him to become president for life. Why, without him, we'd still be at the mercy of those chaos breeders who propagandized democracy. 1978. Like I said, a lot of things in 78 were unguessable. But this stage musician is performing tricks for this despotic president for life and his guard. And it quickly becomes apparent in the course of the story that the tricks are the result of time travel in a very clever way. So the magician, in a different time period, uses a time bracelet. That's the gimmick. That's the MacGuffin that we have here. The time bracelet allows him to travel through time, but also to send things through time. That's the gimmick of the story, is what if that stage magician up on stage is doing amazing things, was doing them with the aid of time travel? What if the magician sent through the time bracelet a thrown bucket of water? And you know exactly when it's going to arrive through your own time bracelet. So you're up there on stage, you've got an empty bucket, you don't have any trick. There isn't any trick to make the audience think they're seeing water come out of a bucket you've shown them is empty. Instead, the water is coming through time. You're just going to pretend that you're performing magic. Same thing with everything else that goes on stage. It's all going to come through time. The gimmicks of the stage magic are coming through time. And the key to the story is that the stage magician wants to kill President Porky. He wants to assassinate the president, and he has reasoned out that if he can send buckets of water or flowers or other magic special effects through time, then he can send a bullet through time. And so at one point in the story, he's flashing back a few times to his childhood and to the moment when he found this time bracelet in a box in his own attic, right next to the hole in the wall of the attic where his father had once shot at someone he thought was a prowler. We flash back to his life with that and his various experiences with this thing. But we get to the point where the protagonist here thinks, well, if I take a Secret Serviceman's gun out of its holster and shoot it at the empty chair where in a different time frame President Porky will be sitting, and then use the time bracelets to put that bullet through time, well, then I won't be able to be held accountable. It will be the perfect assassination. And the story is as is you'd expect from a time travel story. It weaves and warps in on itself. It won't be any surprise at all. No spoiler. By the halfway through the story, anybody who's reading the story knows perfectly well that the prowler that the main character's father shot was the main character traveling through time. What you don't see is what happens as a result of that shot. The thing that explains the title of the story, The Gift of Prometheus. You don't see the gimmick. There's an end gimmick. There's a twist at the end of the story. I don't know that I'm doing anybody any favors by not spoiling a short story from 50 years ago by Kevin O'Donnell. I don't know that Kevin O'Donnell's short stories have ever been reprinted. Lord knows his McGill fan books have never been reprinted. They had the one reprint in a very distinctive mass market series, and then nothing. As far as I know, they've never come back into print. Terrible, terrible shame. You would enjoy them. You would enjoy them. They are antic, wonderfully smart science fiction. And now the more I think about it, the more I'm wondering if this author is dead. He can't be, though. He can't be. Anyway, the story was good. It has a twist at the end, and then in classic sci-fi time travel tradition, the twist at the end has a twist. And I enjoyed it. It certainly gave me, stuff to think about. That sounded awful condescending. I didn't mean it that way, but it gave me stuff to think about. But it reinforced the opinion that I got yesterday, which is that pretty much the only thing you can do with time travel in a science fiction story, even before a lot of, thought experiments and developments in subatomic particles have been done is gimmick. That's pretty much all you can do is gimmick. I've been racking my brains trying to come up with an example of science fiction, even that's not a short. We're doing short fiction for New Worlds November, so 200 pages or fewer. And even there, I've been racking my brains trying to come up with a science fiction short story that has ever struck me as anything more than that. And I haven't quite succeeded. Instead, I'm going to keep going through these vintage volumes for the rest of, well, we're Thursday now, for the rest of this week, for the rest of this prompt. And then we'll move on to the final prompt. The final prompt will not be hard to find stories about. The final prompt is dystopian and post-apocalyptic. But I'm gonna persevere with time travel and see what kind of luck I have. So I have a few more of these, thanks to the generosity of one of you. I have a few more of these, so I'm gonna go through and see if I can find some more time travel stories. We had one that was funny. Here's one that's a little tragic and also very good. So we'll see. It's a good run, even though it's not quite what I want. But anyway, I'll wrap this up for now. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.